It's time for Horse Talk Live. Enjoy the next half hour learning about ARBICO fly eliminators, as well as the whole ARBICO line of products. Natural solutions for everyday pest problems. Howdy everybody, and welcome to Horse Talk Live. I'm your host, Lizzie Iverson. Today we've got a great show for you. No matter if you have horses, livestock, or just a backyard, we've got ARBICO Organics and ARBICO Fly Eliminators here with us. The co-owner of this company is Sherry Herrera de Fry, and she's our guest. Thanks so much, Sherry, for being here.
Thank you, Lizzie. It's a pleasure. Glad to be here.
We've got lots to talk about. You and I got to sit and get to know each other earlier, and I was fascinated by something that you just kind of take for granted. We've seen your product out there, but today we're really going to get to understand it. And we can call you Dr. Bug Lady.
That's right.
So you have dedicated your the past 30 years to understanding how we can control pests and in a safe, organic manner. So let's get started and find out a little bit more about how you got into such an interesting field.
It really is interesting. I mean, I never dreamed I would be involved in bugs. And so it's kind of a cute story. My husband and I knew we wanted to do something that created great value. We weren't sure what it was going to be. And so while we were studying at the University of Arizona, doing some graduate work, we had some friends that came to visit us, actually an old boyfriend of mine, and he and his wife and little baby came by, and they came into our kitchen, and he pulled out a bag of bugs and set them on the kitchen counter, and the rest is history. My husband was very excited about these bugs. He's a wildlife biologist, and I don't remember being all that excited. It just, was fascinating, let me put it that way. And since he had the summers off, he announced after our friends left that he would like to sell these little bugs. And he went out and got himself 3 different hats and some cowboy boots and a couple of other kinds of shoes, and off he went. And it was very interesting because it became very successful.
Right.
He was able to sell these little tiny insects for biological fly control to feedlots and dairies and poultry and swine facilities and lots of horse owners, including major racetracks. So it was a great success, and that was how we got started in business.
Was there anything on the market at the time that's similar to your product?
Nothing like that at all. I mean, when people would say, wait a minute, you want me to put bugs out to get rid of bugs? You must think I'm crazy. But this is what we call biological fly control or biological control. And it was nothing that was comparable to it at the time. All people had were synthetic pesticides, things that were toxic and noxious. And so our timing was perfect.
Okay, so we're, like you had mentioned, using bugs to get rid of bugs. Tell us exactly how it all works.
Well, it's kind of interesting. With beneficial fly control or biological fly control, what we do is we provide a tiny little insect. And you and I were talking about how our tax dollars were used about 50 or 60 years ago for the research that was conducted by the USDA and many universities across the country. And so what they found was that out in nature, there are beneficial insects that are predaceous, some are parasitic, some are kind of a combination of both. And so our little insects are what we call fly parasites or fly parasitoids. And so what they do is they parasitize the developing pupal stage of common flies that bother our horses and our livestock and bother us as well.
You bet. So how did you guys go about finding out exactly, tell us a little bit more in depth how they manage the adult flies?
Well, so here's the deal. We're going to manage the adult flies with trapping, but when we're talking biological fly control, what happens is, let's just talk a little bit about first the life cycle of the fly so people understand. There are different kinds of flies. Now there are biting flies, and there are the types of flies that breed in and around manure, and then there are the types of flies that are biting that also are found around muddy areas. And so when we talk fly eliminators, which is just our trademark name for our little fly parasites, what we're talking about is we're going to be using these insects to control those kinds of flies that are most commonly found around horses and livestock. So we're talking the lesser housefly, the housefly, we're talking the blowflies, the bottle flies, stable flies, horn flies, those kinds of flies.
Okay.
when we talk about things like horse flies and greenheads and buffalo flies and black flies, those are a little different. And so those we take care of with another product, another organism, so to speak. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on in the show. So for the common flies that breed in and around decomposing organic material, like manure and like urine spots, and any place where there's decomposing organic material where we put our manure, you know, where we stack it up in a compost pile, so to speak.
Which is inevitable when you have livestock.
Inevitable. That's where these little fly parasites are actually found naturally. And that's where the research came in many years ago, because they actually found these little guys parasitizing the pupal stage of the fly. So what happens is, in a fly eliminator program, people will actually, whether you have 2 to 5 horses, whether you're a racetrack, a dairy, a swine facility, or a farmer that kind of has a little bit of everything, because you know, if you've got horses, you usually have some working dogs, you could have a couple of pigs or goat or sheep or whatever. You always have a fly problem. So with these little fly eliminators, what happens is people register, if you will, or sign up for a biological fly control program. And what that means is that they're going to receive a little bag of bugs that will be a sufficient amount to treat the number of animals that they have in their particular situation. And so once they receive that little bag of bugs, and it usually comes in the mail or sometimes UPS or FedEx, they open up that bag and check for evidence of hatching. And so these insects are very small. I mean, they are no bigger than a little gnat. I mean, they're tiny little guys. They have wings. They can fly, but generally they just walk around. And so if you have horses in your backyard, you probably have these little guys, but not enough to make a difference. And so in a biological control program, what we're doing is we're augmenting the already naturally occurring population there to bring it up to a place where they can begin to compete with the developing fly. And so once you notice that they're hatching and you see them crawling around in the little plastic bag, you know it's time to release them. And so we like to have you release them at the end of the day, you know, when the sun is setting down. These are live, and so we want to be sure that they can get plenty of time to get out of harm's way and get into undercover. And so you just go on out with your bag of bugs at the end of the day, and you just begin to sprinkle them. I would say as small an amount as a little, like maybe a half a teaspoon to as large an amount as a small handful. And you just take all the material in the bag and you sprinkle it out where the horses are urinating and manuring, along fence lines, posts. We're talking about manure piles, any place that you might have kennels, any compost piles. You sprinkle them out, cover them up a little bit, and they'll do the rest.
Okay, so it's as easy as that. And the main thing that we want to get across is you have to be proactive. You have to know that getting ahead of the game, it's easier to fix the problem before it starts.
You're absolutely right. And what we're talking about is, we want, in a biological fly control program, what we're talking about is starting your program prior to or at onset of infestation. Meaning, we don't want to wait till the horses are being carried away by the flies, you know, and it's, you know, you're like, oh my heavens, you know, a black cloud has taken over. No, you want to, when you start to see the first flies, and what we recommend for people is when it starts to warm up in your particular area, that's when you're going to get on a program. The program lasts throughout the duration of the fly season. So you may go every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. You're just going to receive automatically another bag of bugs that you release. And so you're building those populations so they can begin to compete with the fly.
So what is it, you've mentioned, you know, where the flies choose to lay their eggs and hatch, and, you know, where they are on your property, but what is it about the flies that attract why they're attracted to horses and cattle, and why they're such pests to those animals?
Well, that's a great question. And you know, that's the thing. No matter wherever we have our horses and our livestock, there are always going to be flies. And of course, flies love decomposing material, and so where those urine spots are, and I mean, even people talk about, why did they bother my horse's eyes?
Right.
And it's because it's a moist area. They're looking for hydration. And let's just take a moment and talk about the biology of the fly. Female flies and male flies, when they are born, they're born as adults. They don't get bigger, bigger, bigger. They're actually born as adults. And so when you see a housefly wasn't a littler fly before and got bigger. It's actually born it's the size that you see.
Interesting.
And some flies are much bigger, you know, like the big stable flies. You've seen those. So, but if we're talking about just the basic flies that bother our horses, when they're born, they're adults. Now, the first thing they want to do is generally they're going to want to feed. And so the males and females will feed a little bit on that decomposing material. And next they'll have a little romance. And after that, the male dies. And the female now is ready to go lay her eggs. And where does she lay them? On some decomposing organic material. And so she lays the little eggs on that material. They're so small you can't even see them. They look like little specks of powdered sugar. And then Lizzie, within a few hours, they metamorphose or develop into what we call larvae or maggots. And of course, everybody's seen a maggot at some time, you know, on a carcass, say, of a decomposing animal. They get to be about half-inch thick, but when they start off, they're tiny. Again, they're so small you can't see them. And they're light sensitive, so they undulate their little bodies through the decomposing material, and below that is where they remain until they grow to their full size. They feed. And then eventually, they undulate or wiggle away to a drier place where they stop moving and they pupate. Now, pupa of a fly looks like the size and shape of a piece of rice, chocolate in color, but you know, I wouldn't recommend you eat them. I mean, they're protein, but you know, I don't know. You know, they're great food for other critters.
Yeah.
Anyway, but when they're in that stage, that's when our little insects do their work. And the female seeks that pupa out. She pokes a little hole into that pupa, lays her little eggs inside of that, and as those eggs develop into larvae, they then begin to feed on the developing fetal fly, and that's how the fly is killed.
It's crazy how you and everybody else has
It's
figured
amazing.
this out. But
It's amazing.
It's so smart because it really is stopping the problem before it starts.
Exactly.
And everybody knows that during the summer or whichever month is worse for you, it is so annoying. And the horses actually, you know, can disease can be spread from flies. So talk a little bit about the health aspect of
Well, that's really the bottom line, the health aspect. And first of all, we love our animals and we want to treat them well, just as we want to treat ourselves well. And so having alternatives to toxic rescue remedies that are synthetic and harmful to the environment is a wonderful thing. And so what we're talking about is flies transmit diseases, they transmit encephalitis, they cause conjunctivitis, many viruses, and all sorts of diseases in other animals as well, black tongue in sheep. We're talking just, you know, all sorts of sores from the biting flies. And so from the health aspect, it's really something that we have to focus on. The other thing is those of us that are breeders, particularly if you have other animals that you may be rearing for meat, we're talking pounds per hoof. And any time an animal has to go and stand outside in the hot sun to get away from the flies, you know, the irritation, you know, you're feeding them, and of course they're losing weight, and then we're talking about when we don't protect them from the flies, more vet bills. So it's just a constant problem with flies.
Okay, but you're helping people coast to coast, no matter what the climate is. You're in Arizona, I'm from Montana, I live in Tennessee now, doesn't matter. ARBICO will help everybody design a plan specific for your property, which is fabulous. So you can call their number, somebody will answer the phone and give you the correct program specified to what your needs are.
Exactly. And what's great is that when you do call during our regular business hours, and we're open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, Pacific Standard Time right now, and on Saturdays from 7 to 1, you can call that 1-800-SOS-BUGS number, and you'll get a live person. You're never going to call and not have great customer service. Our people are trained, they're biocontrol specialists, and they're going to tailor that program specifically for your situation based on the severity of your fly problem, based on your neighbors, based on your climatic conditions, and if you have other animals too. We want to be sure we take care of all the animals that you might have.
Well, that's perfect, because then you know you're getting your money's worth. You're not spending money on something you may not need, and you're always going to get exactly enough of the product to make a difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, it's fun. I mean, for the whole family. People like to go out and put their bugs out. It's just a great thing to do. And again, it's the alternative to toxic products and
Right.
affordable. I mean, for if you have 2 to 5 horses, we're talking $17.95 a month, and that
is
includes the
doable.
shipping.
Yeah, that's
Not
the
bad.
cost of a bottle of fly spray, easy.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, there's more when it comes to ARBICO Organics, not just fly eliminators. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to learn what ARBICO has to offer for all of you pet owners, gardeners, farmers, you name it, we'll get you covered. Stick around. We'll be back with more on Horse Talk Live. Welcome back, everybody, to Horse Talk Live. I'm your host, Lizzie Iverson. Today, we're learning about pest control. We were spending a little time talking about fly eliminators. Now we're going to continue moving on, see what all the products that ARBICO Organics has to offer to us people with horses and backyards and such. If you subscribe to Horse and Rider, a number of different magazines, you may have met Sherry already. She's on the back cover of a lot of these magazines and talking and advertising her products. So Sherry, we talked about fly eliminators and how you are helping to prevent and control these pest problems, something that every one of us who has livestock or lives in the outdoors has to deal with. And you're doing it organically. Explain why organic is so important, when we talk about your whole program.
Well, a lot of people no longer want to use toxic products, petroleum-based products. The more we know about products like glyphosate, herbicides, fungicides, and insecticides like malathion, the more we know that they not only do they hurt insects, but they hurt us too. And they contaminate our water, the air that we breathe. They're also contaminating our land. And so organic means that whatever you are doing is done without the use of synthetic products.
Okay.
And when we talk about fly eliminators in terms of a biological pest control program, we also want people to know that it's part of an integrated pest management approach, which we call IPM. And so along with fly eliminators, we talk about traps. Now, traps are really important because they're your first line of defense. And so when people use traps, we like them, number one, to use traps for monitoring. We want them to use traps for, obviously, for trapping. And not only that, it gives you that psychological great feeling that, oh, I've got those nasty flies.
Yes,
so,
instant gratification.
Exactly. So in all of our biological control programs, we recommend trapping. The other thing that we like to recommend with trapping, of course, is the use of non-toxic insecticides or repellents. And so that means if something is a little out of control, you can use something to repel. You can put on your animals, your horses. It won't hurt them. It will repel the flies. And so it's a win-win. So we're looking at doing something for all stages of development. And so along with our fly eliminators, one of the other products that I think that our viewers would be very interested in is what we call our beneficial nematodes. Now, the beneficial nematodes are another little organism, and they're so small that you can't see them. Like 5 million of them would fit in this little box here.
Wow.
And so those little guys are actually a multi-purpose organism that takes care of pests, again, in the soil. And we're talking about the maggot stage of the fly. We're talking about ants and roaches and termites. We're talking gnats, caterpillar pests, thrips, termites. And so these little guys go hand in hand with the fly eliminators because they take care of all the other pests that are in the soil.
Wow.
They are in the earthworm family. So they're a beneficial nematode. A lot of people, when they hear that word nematode, they think, oh, because there are different types of nematodes. You have phytophagous nematodes, which are the ones that hurt plants, like root knot nematodes, and then they're the ones that bother humans and animals, like Necator americanus, which is the hookworm, or Strongyloides, the threadworm.
Okay.
But these are the good guys. These are the good guys, and these guys are the ones that you simply, all you have to do is you mix them with a little bit of water, and you put them in a hose-in sprayer, and you just spray the area, wherever the area is that you need to cover where you have those pests in the soil. And the best part about them is they are so safe, they don't require EPA registration. Here's how they work. Once you've sprayed them out, what happens is these little tiny microscopic worms, they crawl to their host. And so if we're talking an ant or a fly maggot, they get in through the mouth, the spiracles, the body walls, and once inside, they do something really strange. They vomit a bacteria. And that bacteria, I know it sounds so weird, that bacteria begins to multiply into a thick, viscous soup. And as that soup begins to grow, it actually kills the insect and it eviscerates it from the inside out. At the same time, it triggers hormones that make those nematodes inside of that host, the pest, begin to breed. And so they breed, and then there are new babies that are created, and then they leave what's left of the pest and go find another host. They're marvelous, marvelous, beneficial. And again, they work so well in conjunction with fly eliminators and some of our other products that we sell as well.
And so this will be part of a package should somebody need a nematode as part of their strategy.
Most definitely.
And that's what your experts will recommend if that's the appropriate thing to do. So we don't have to make those decisions because I didn't know what a nematode was and how to use it.
Right. But you do now.
Yes, I do. Okay, what about mosquitoes? And this is something, I talk to vets day in and day out, and a lot of diseases are mosquito-borne when it comes to horses.
Yes, they are.
West Nile virus, unfortunately, we hear a lot about it these days. And every time they talk about prevention, it's vaccination, of course, and most everybody does that. But there's also talk about preventing mosquitoes before they become a problem. So how can ARBICO help us to eliminate mosquito populations on our property?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely correct. I mean, flies, mosquitoes, fleas, and ticks. And that was one of the other things I wanted to talk about, the nematodes one more time, because I forgot. The nematodes work great, Lizzie, on fleas and ticks. So I want everybody to keep that in mind. They are so multi-purpose. But mosquitoes, you're right, they are a horrible problem. Yeah. They do transmit, as you say, diseases like the Eastern, Western encephalitis. Also, as you said, West Nile virus. We're talking St. Louis virus, St. Croix virus, and a whole other batch of anomalies that, even including heartworms. I mean, heartworms for dogs.
Really?
I don't know that most people understand that, but that's how dogs get heartworms. And I mean, when they have them, they're done. That's it. So it's really important that people know about biological mosquito control.
Okay.
One of the things we're showing here in front of us are what we call a tiny little bacteria. And this little bacteria, again, it's so small you can't see it with the naked eye, but it's encapsulated here in a media. And there are two versions right here in front of us. One of them is the little round dunks, what we call dunks, and the other product is the granular version of it. And so the way this works is this. Mosquitoes, when the female gets together with the male, before they can have a little romance, the female must have a blood meal. So she's either going to be biting you or me or our animals or our pets. And so what we want to be sure is that we can do everything to prevent that from ever happening. This is, again, a biological control program, and biocontrol programs are proactive. You want to start, as I said, prior to an onset of the infestation. Okay. So basically the idea here is you're going to take these little dunks, you can break them up, you can put them in the horse's trough, and you can put it in any standing water, or you can actually broadcast these little granules into places where the water is going to appear in low-lying areas after a rain. Wow. And you don't even have to have animals. I mean, if people have a backyard and they've got a little pond or a bird bath or container plants with a little saucer in the bottom, any place in your backyard where there could be any water that may be collecting after a rain, that's where mosquitoes can breed.
So even, like you said, I mean, it's hard to believe that you could actually put them in a water trough.
Absolutely, they are what we call species specific. So what they do is they only harm mosquito larvae, black fly larvae, and so the great thing about it is if we were to kill every mosquito on the planet, these guys would die too. They are a bacteria. So the way it works with mosquitoes, the mosquito has a gaping mouth, but as an adult, I'm getting ahead of myself. As an adult, the female has her blood meal, then she has a little romance. Then she lays her egg near wherever it's going to be moist or where it is moist. So, you know, they're not laying in the middle of a pond or a lake. All the activity is happening right at the edges of any place that comes in contact with water. And so if she begins to lay her little eggs, those guys begin to develop into larvae. And the larvae are little swimmers, and they have these big gaping mouths, and they're filter feeders, so they're feeding off of the organic material in our troughs and in our little ponds and bird baths and that type of thing. And this is a disease that is specific to them. It causes a disease, and so within 24 hours after ingesting it, they're dead. Will not hurt fish, it does not hurt people, will not hurt our animals. It's amazing.
It is. And as we move towards the end of the show, we want to keep mentioning that you don't have to have animals. A backyard is all it takes. So some other products that you have, you know, the ladybugs. We haven't gotten to those yet. So briefly tell us about
Well, ladybugs are the poster child for all of biocontrol. And as we know, ladybugs are just dear and beautiful. In fact, we actually have people that purchase ladybugs to celebrate with. They release them for memorial services and weddings and birthdays. And what are they used for? They're generalist predators that are used in gardens and on farms to get rid of aphids and mites and thrips and whiteflies. And we have green lacewings that are also a generalist predator that you may have seen them in the garden sometimes. They're a very beautiful light green winged insect in their adult stage, but in their larval stage, they feed on all sorts of soft-bodied insects. Whitefly parasites and even trichogramma. Trichogramma is something that a beneficial little teeny tiny wasp in the Hymenopteran family that parasitizes moth eggs. And I mean, it's pretty exciting to be in this business. And you know, I want everybody to realize that they don't have to use chemicals. They have choices.
Okay, that's really what it all comes down to. That's what it seems like you're most proud of, you know, is being able to provide that organic, natural, safe product to people. And you are offering for folks, if they want to give the fly eliminators a try, they can call.
Absolutely. You can call or go online and ask for a free trial package.
Okay.
And we send them to our new customers. There's one per household. We'd love to send you a trial package so you can see what they look like for yourself.
You bet. It seems awfully easy to use. As we close the show, tell us, you know, just some final words for people and what you would recommend for coast to coast.
Well, coast to coast, it kind of reminds me of all of our large customers, like the racetracks. We have every major racetrack in the country using our insects, from Del Mar Racetrack to Philadelphia to, of course, Churchill Downs. We've got the Derby this weekend.
Heck yeah.
And we're so proud of our customers. And we just invite you to follow us in our mission, which is to work with the global community in providing environmental alternatives that reawaken the human spirit and bring the world into harmony.
Perfect. Well, you've been a great guest today. We encourage all of our viewers today to visit Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and find ARBICO Organics on all three of those methods to keep up with you guys and learn more about what you're doing and helping us, our animals, everybody stay comfortable and happy. We appreciate you tuning in for Horse Talk Live, and we'll see you next time.